If you were looking back on the years that you've been in this field, from now until back, what do you hope to see as your legacy in the lives of the people that you touched?
I want everyone to be inner child specialist. I want them to have all healed inner children. I want to see the bubble. The light starts with the one person.
So if you survived it, what are you doing now? If you survived it, that means no matter what comes your way, you're gonna overcome it. You're gonna overcome it. As a child, I didn't know exactly what it meant to have a peace of mind. I didn't know exactly what it meant to have faith of a mustard seed. But when you start going through things in your life, and storms get to raging, you start understanding just what mama said, just what your parents try to tell you. You understand all of that. And in this lifetime right now, a peace of mind is the best thing you can ever have. Especially when you went through this and you went through that, and you got through this and you got through that, because you survived it. Welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Silence, where you can unleash your inner voice. I'm your host, Author Nikki Nicole, and season 5 is loaded with some amazing people taking things to the next level and winning. Over the past few seasons, you've seen pain uncovered, new talent discovered, and transformation occurred. Every season, every episode has broke the silence in some type of way. And I will continue to shine that light even in the darkness to empower people to rise to the next level. It's time for us to be heard. It's time to heal, and it's time to transform. Now let's get to the reason why we're here today. I met this lovely, amazing lady actually on another platform. And every time she get on the platform, I was like, whoa, wait. She was just turning heads like, is that for real? So I had to have her on my platform so you can experience her as well. Miss Alicia, I hope I'm saying this name right. Farricielli, I hope I said that right. She's a certified life and health coach that specializes in the inner child work. You'll be surprised what you can learn about the inner child. So let me stop running my mouth and let me introduce her onto the stage. So after her countdown, please welcome this amazing woman to the Breaking the Silence platform. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on here. I love everything you're doing on your
Thank
podcast.
you.
So yeah, thanks for doing all this work.
Thank you. Yes, yes. I love what I'm doing. It's not work when you love what you're doing.
Exactly.
So tell everybody a little bit about yourself before we dive into the conversation.
Yeah. So again, I'm Alicia Farricielli, and you said it completely correct. You're like 1 in 4 people who do that. So congratulations. No very long last name. Yeah. So I call myself an inner child coach or specialist. I'm a certified life coach, like, all the rest of the people out there is too. But I really strive to bring out the inner child healing through my clients. And I do this through on a spiritual level as opposed to a clinical psychologist level. Whereas we go deep into connecting with spirit, with God, with the divine, and through energy work, through spirituality practices such as breath work, meditation. And then we do one-on-one coaching. And so we really start to heal that inner child and bring it into a very happy, creative part of yourself.
Nice. So what inspired you to get into this field? What intrigued you? And what was that pivotal moment to say, I want to be a life coach that specializes in the inner child?
Yeah, it was a little journey that I went on. So I started a little healing journey. I go back in preference with my background as I was brought into a very extremely strict religious hellfire damnation type of mentality, very fear based. So and through my mother's wound, I was brought into this world that way. And so I had a lot of childhood traumas through, called spiritual abuse, some mental abuse, and some things that happened, that just really put me into a fit, made me feel really shameful about my life and myself, and a lot of guilt for things that life decisions that I made in my past. And so as I was kind of going through that, I was like, I need to start healing myself throughout this journey. And so I started the healing process. And finally, I mean, it hit me, I think I was like 2017 or 2018, one of those years. I just sat down and I was like, I'm done, God. I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I either want to, don't want to live anymore, or something's got to change. So I hit that pivotal moment. It was very, 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 and I had to go through that, unfortunately. And so when I hit that, things started to change and my life started to open up a little bit more, started see things, and I started to have opportunities pop into my way to be able to start healing. I mean, I've been in and out of therapy for 20, 30 years of my, long time, 20 years of my life, back and forth. And there's things that was missing. So I started the healing process, started digging deep into a lot of mindset work and starting to change my limiting beliefs on my life and started to open that possibilities up. And so I was doing this. I was in the event business and it was just burning me out. And so then I went into real estate and did the same thing experienced. And so I decided I've always wanted to do business coaching, but I had a limiting belief that I couldn't do that. I was like, that's because I haven't had $10 million company, I was like, I can still teach people how to open business. So I started doing that, but I found that people that I was working with, they didn't have, their mindset was not to the thing they could succeed. So I'm like, let's go do some mindset work on this. And then I found my passion. And so about that time, I hired a life coach myself. So went in and got my life coaching certification. Then I ended up hiring someone who helped me throughout my business portion. But in 90 days, she started introducing me to energy work and all these different healing modalities on a spiritual basis, and started to release a lot of this trauma that was locked inside of me, to where I could actually start that healing process on a speed, like a speed train more. And so I started healing more and more. And I still felt, I was working with clients and stuff. So I still felt there was something missing. And so it's funny how when you ask for something, the universe is like, okay, you asked for it, you're going to get it. Here's inner child work. And so the term kept coming up, and I was paying attention to that. I'd heard it through, psychology classes in college. You did a little bit, for the, Carl Jung through, child development and psychology and inner child portions too, and through some other stuff, but I never really knew what that was. So I started working with that and doing some shadow work behind it, pretty much all on my own, and found that was the missing piece. It's like, this is what was missing, was this little Alicia inside of me was still hurting, was still scared. She was still frightful. She's so wounded that she didn't have any, I didn't have any, I say I had some self-worth then because I started to develop it, but nothing like I have today. And so once I started to bring her into existence and started to give her attention and loving and kindness and things that work for me, I started working with my clients. And once I started working with clients, all of a lot of 90% of what they were facing had to do with inner child issues, something that was deep rooted from their past that was still subconsciously inside of them. So,
Wow. So how do you think the inner child shapes you as an adult? Shapes your adult identity, and like what patterns do you think we live by today in life because of the inner child?
everything that we believe about ourselves has to do with I believe, deep rooted in our inner child. So we can have, I always tell people, think of yourself when you were between the ages of 3 and 8. The further back you can go, the better. Most people don't remember, less than, 3 years old. You're lucky at 3. I think I remember like 4 or 5, honestly, in kindergarten, those ages. So when you kind of go back that far, think about how you were. You were probably naturally, normally a free-spirited child. Even if you had traumas, you had, all kinds of things going around, you still had this free spirit in you, that you were protecting yourself, but you're also knew you had the world at your fingertips. You're like, well, I can do this, and I can do that. I can do this. If I want to be Superwoman, I can be Superwoman. I'm going to be Superman. I want to be a baseball player. I want to be an actor, things. And then you're told by society, by your parents, sometimes by teachers and things, that no, that's not realistic. You get put into this reality, which is the box that we all get placed into. Every single person gets placed into this box, one way or the other. And so when you place into the box, it's not always in alignment with who you are. And so therefore, those little wounds could happen. So little wounds could be from a teacher telling you that you should have you misbehaved in class or something, or wrote something on your report card, or you came home with a B minus or a C plus, and your parents expected A's and A pluses from you. Things like that can trigger your inner child. So since we haven't learned to release that, because we're children, as we're children, we think see things literally. I mean, you
Right.
tell a child that the barn is blue, and it's like it's going to argue it's red because it sees red, but blue could be a symbolism of red, so it sees things literally because our minds have not the different portions of our minds have not developed. So as we get into our adulthood, we're still taking those wounds into us because we still think that we're not worthy enough. Say little Johnny pulled your hair and told you were ugly in class. Well, you believe that at the time. Say you believe at the
Right.
time. You're taking that through it subconsciously inside of you because you haven't released that and told your, rationed out threat that that's not true. So then as you get into things and maybe somebody says something, your shirt, I don't like your shirt, and you automatically think you're ugly
Mm.
or you're unworthy. And so these little triggers that come up tie into this inner child. And so we have to go back and through a process and tell this inner child that it's still safe and loved, and the things that it went through and told are not okay, but they're not true. They're not
Mm.
true in their minds, not that true that they didn't happen. But we have to give it attention and listen to it and acknowledge it. Because imagine if you're trying to tell a 3-year-old and you ignore a 3-year-old, what's it going to do? It's going to act up. It may
Yeah,
pout for a while. It's going to get your attention because it feeds and needs that attention. So
exactly.
your inner child's still doing that. So
Mm.
it's either the creative fun portion of you or it's this wounded child. So imagine if you have a hard time holding on to relationships, or you're having continuous arguments with your partner, your spouse, or your friends. If you're in the same job and you're, constantly just feel like you're going to have a business and you're just on the hamster wheel and you're always trying to improve and achieve. If you're tying your worth and success into your material possessions or your successfulness in the world, a lot of times that comes back to what your inner child stuff. So a lot
Mm.
of things that we do in our life really tie into this inner child. We don't even know this until we start to nurture and really talk to this inner child. We don't know where it's coming from.
Wow. So how do you fix that? Because that's just like if you go back into your childhood, like you said,
Yeah.
someone picking on you and saying, "Oh, you're ugly," or "You're not worth it," "You're not this." So if you carrying this with you all your life into your adulthood, how do you fix that? Because now it's a belief.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is you acknowledge and aware of that the reason it is. And that's the biggest huge step. So now we have an awareness. So when something comes up, we be like aware, oh, that's my inner child, more than likely talking out. So we give ourselves grace and forgiveness, knowing it's just a part of me that's acting out right now, and I'm gonna move on. So once we go into the inner child, we're gonna talk to that inner child. And we're going to listen to it because it was probably never listened to. It was never respected. And you're going to listen to it the way it wants to be listened to. And so once you do that, and you start to heal this portion of yourself as you go through, and you're going to reframe the mindset of this inner child. You're going to talk to it and you're going to show it the love, because basically it's looking for safety, it's looking for unconditional love and respect, which is what children want. And so, and respect to me is not the respect, like you have to earn respect, but respect its feelings and respect its emotions, respect that it's
Mm.
a child. And so once it has that and it starts to feel that safety and it feels safe to be able to come out, then it's going to start to heal that process. And it's not something that goes away because our inner child's with us all the time. And there are going to be triggers that come up. And
Mhm.
I've been working on inner child for about 3 years, I guess 2-3 years on a daily basis. And there's still like 2 days ago, I had to go back into meditation and be like, all right, got to talk to this inner child because something is like, I'm up against another hurdle in my business and I can't figure out why I'm feeling this way about it. And it was something tied into my inner child of friends. A family friend had the way that they treated my father or something. And that's what came up when I was talking to their child. Now, that doesn't mean that what happened then was necessarily the truth, but that's my perception as a child. Then I have to acknowledge that, and I had to realize that's the way that my child felt at the time. And
Right.
so I have to acknowledge that and respect that and reframe it and go back and reparent it and just know that no matter what, I'm your parent now. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter whatever happened in your past. I'm going to parent you the way that you want to be parented. And you know that inside yourself, if that's your inner child, that it needs a little bit extra love today. Give yourself a big hug. Talk to yourself. Literally have conversations, almost like you're having a conversation with yourself, with this
Yeah.
little child inside of you, and give it some attention. And once it starts to blossom, it's a process. It's not an overnight thing. Once it
Right.
starts to blossom and process through, it's going to start having some fun. It's going to want to have a little fun. And so when that comes, you need to take advantage take advantage of that. And that's the fun. Think about the things you wanted to do when you were a kid. What was it?
See, that's just like well, that's pretty much like getting to know yourself
Yeah.
in another way. And if
Yeah.
you know yourself, but that just says that a lot of us don't really know ourselves.
Mhm. Because we've been in that box. We have to we're coming out of that box is what we're doing. And we're learning to accept that. And you can do this in the safety of your own home with nobody around, whatever, however you feel safe, because you have to feel safe and your inner child has to feel safe doing this work. But once it starts to become out, it's like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. What is something I used to want to, what did I enjoy doing? I used to love to art stuff when I was a kid. What if you like jump rope? If you were like soccer or basketball or whatever, if you wanted to, I tell people, like, if you wanted to be Superman, you don't literally have to dress. You can dress up in a Superman or Superwoman. I mean, it's Halloween. We're recording this tomorrow, Halloween tomorrow. You can obviously get away with that. But if you want to do that, by all means, please do and send me a picture because I'm going to cheer you on for doing it. But think about put on a red shirt or put on something and be like, I'm Superwoman today, and pretend that you have the confidence and the whatever you loved about Superwoman or the character, whatever, and be that character and bring that playfulness out of yourself. That's what we want to see.
Wow. Whew, you blowing my mind. So
It's deep, but
it's deep now. So what does achieving life balance mean to you? And how do you help your clients toward, reaching that goal?
so life balance to me is living a fulfilling life on all areas. So mind, body, spirit to me is life balance. So if I have something out of a line, if I'm not taking care of self, if I'm not going to the gym or eating the way that I need to eat, or doing or exercising or taking care of that, my mindset starts to wander because it gets clouded with stuff. And then my mindset goes to go, I'm not spending time with spirit, with God, and my what I call, divine portions of my, and it doesn't, you don't have to have like a religious back or any type of spiritual background. You're not spending time with yourself, with your true being. And so when you're not putting all those together, it's not working. It doesn't work. If we're spending too much time trying to chase after the next dollar amount, if we're in scarcity, we're not taking care of our bodies. We're not taking care of our minds or our souls. So it's really keeping those two in alignment and knowing when to take rest and breaks. The best thing you can do is if you're up against a wall and you're like, you have something you got to get done, take a break, clear your mind out, and just let it receive in what's happening.
This
If
is
we're
confirmation
pushing,
because
pushing, pushing, and we have to receive it back in, that's work. That's life balance to me. Is letting
wow,
your receiving come in.
I keep hearing that word rest over and over again. That's just confirmation I need to take some time to rest because
Yes,
I don't. I don't.
I feel it's hard, especially doing podcasts, doing business, you're writing books, you're doing all. It's so hard to take the rest. But my biggest, most successful months in my business and in my life and the things that I've seen magically happen have been when I've taken that time of
Mm,
rest and just stepped back. I take a month off social media and I'm like, I can't be post if I don't post, if I don't do this. And it's like, no, every single time I do that and I try that once a year, I get clients. I mean, it's like it just opens up because I needed to take that rest for myself and literally receive it back in.
I might need to try it because I'm
Give it a
tired. I
try.
do need some rest though. I do. I do need some rest. So how do you help clients identify and connect with that inner child? Because a lot of people probably look and say, "My inner child, what is that?" How do you help them to understand that that inner child is there and to connect with them?
Yeah. So we look at what are they not feeling in their lives? What are they missing? And so we try to tie that back into when's the first time that you felt that way? And most of the time we get really really deep in there. We'll say, well, I felt that way when I was 20. Okay, think about it a little further. Did you ever feel this way when you were a child? I think I did. Okay, so we get kind of deep, and a lot of this will go into more of a meditative state. And then I'll do energy work around that and receiving messages from divine, and that'll guide through the healing process. So I'm really not doing the work. It's really God source doing it. So as we go through that, we start tying it in. And then they see, I'm like, well, what if do you still, that little child is still inside of you, is still feeling that way? And they're like, you know what? It probably is. So then we start to connect and communicate with that inner child. And so I teach my clients to be able to do that very quickly, to very quickly be able to connect and to connect the dots to that inner child. Because sometimes we don't even know. We're like, for instance, when I came back, like sometimes I'll just get in this like rush of like anxiety of having to get all this stuff done, and like just crazy madness, and not complete anger, but it'll just get frustrated. Like I'll get car pull out in front of me, and I'll just blow up over the littlest things. I'm like, what is that coming from? And I'm like, okay, let me go talk to my inner child. So I start talking to my inner child, and it's like, yep, I'm feeling neglected right now. And so I'm acting out. And so once you get to that point and you're able to connect to that, almost every single issue that I find, like things that I have emotionally coming up, is connected to that. And so I'm able to comfort her and just bring her back down to feeling safe again.
Wow. So what are some common issues or traumas that you see, that stem from the inner child?
I think the biggest one is the people pleasing that we have. And not setting boundaries and people pleasing. Or it could be the opposite, setting extreme rigid boundaries. So it's the boundary issues is a huge thing. I see people that they're not feeling like they're good enough. They're never happy with the amount of success that they have. They're never happy they hit that $10,000 month, or they got that job that they wanted. Now what? It's like, well, that's what you wanted. But it's still the constant need for that usually comes into needing to approval from other people to feel worthy about yourself, and you're tying it into exterior values and things. So those are probably the two biggest ones that I do see. I see people who can't, they have communication issues, communicating
Mm.
with partners, or they're communicating, period. They don't know how to express themselves. They're afraid to speak up. A lot of time, I mean, almost every time they're afraid to speak up comes in from an inner child issue.
Wow. So that means that I've been dealing with the inner child for a very long time because people pleaser and
Same,
creating them
recovering people.
boundaries,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't know how to do it. I just realized that talking to different coaches that I had
Yeah.
to set boundaries for myself,
Yeah.
for people.
And not feel guilty about it. That's the thing, is that's the hardest part, is like we can set the boundary, then we feel guilty, and we let those boundaries kind of go down. But we have
Yep.
to get back. Why did we set that boundary to begin with? And
Exactly.
so, and it's a work in progress. It's like the guilt, especially, I'm a mom, like the mom guilt. My children are older, but it's still the mom guilt that it's like, ugh, that's such a huge thing that so many women, moms, they suffer from. And a lot of times it's tied into inner child issues, which could a lot of times are brought on from generational. So we get upset we can't blame our parents because we're adults now. We're not a victim, but we're going to go back and we're going to forgive that, because everybody's probably more than likely everybody's doing the best they knew what to do at the time, even if it was
Exactly.
horrific things. That was the best that they could do at that time, and we have to forgive. We have to forgive, as far as like not letting ourselves be a victim of it.
Exactly. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
So what do you find are the greatest fears people have about confronting the inner child, and how do you help them to get past those fears?
Nobody wants to feel uncomfortable. They don't want to
Mm.
deal with the fears. They're like, it's too hard. It's too hard. It is hard, but we can baby step that into it. So we don't want to go from feeling really good, good, to like making yourself feel hurt, all like just like slicing your finger off. We don't want to slice a finger off, but we want to do surgery on that finger and make it, little bits by little bits, and then we're going to start to stitch it up and stitch it up. We're not band-aiding it over it, because when we don't face our wounds, we're nothing but putting a band-aid over it, and they're still there. So people are always like, well, I don't want to feel the pain. It hurts too much. I just don't want to deal with it now. Second thing they tell me is, I've already dealt with that, but it's still playing and repeating in their cycles. They haven't dealt with it yet. Well, that was in the past, and I hear that was in the past. I don't want to go down the past anymore. That's true. We don't want to stay in the past, but we have to go down the past and start the surgery on the wound instead of band-aiding it. Because when we're saying pushing, oh, that was in the past, we put a band-aid over it. Band-aids are going to wear off, and it's going to show up in bigger, more explosive areas in your life that you don't want. So we have to take care of it.
Exactly, I agree. But you know what? Putting a band-aid on it and applying the ointment, like you said, it's still gonna come back again, and you're gonna have to go
Yeah.
do it that healing process all over again.
Yeah. We're
All
gonna
over
stitch
again.
that thing up.
So what does it mean to fully accept your inner child, especially if they carry that seated pain or shame?
So deep-seated pain and shame. So I want to put this out there. For no matter what you've done, you were you probably didn't know better. And if you didn't know better, you do now. So we're going to let the shame go. We're going to let that go. We're going to forgive ourselves because now we know better. If we make a mistake again, we're going to forget it, forgive ourselves because what is it doing? You're adding more like fire to the wounds. So we're just literally you're letting it go and just saying, give yourself grace. But you know what? I screwed up. I made a mistake, but it wasn't a mistake because I learned something. You're always learning from something. So if you're always learning from something, it's not a mistake. You just made a decision that didn't put you in alignment with what you really your true identity or what you truly wanted.
Right,
So we're going to
right.
take the shame of that away. Um, I will say that if you have any type of major abusive situation in your childhood, any type of sexual or physical or extreme emotional abuse, go find the help of a trauma licensed specialist. I'm therapist. Do that. I work on wounds issues on a spiritual level. Always do that work. Like always go work through that work before you start doing a little bit of I call lighter the small traumas because you wanted to address those issues first with it.
Absolutely. Ooh, phew. That inner child is something serious and powerful now.
It is.
So we're down to our last question. Okay, this is out of the box.
Okay.
If you were looking back on the years that you've been in this field from now until back, what do you hope to see as your legacy in the lives of the people that you touched?
I want everyone to be inner child specialist. I want them to have all healed inner children. I want to see the bubble. The light starts with the one person. So every person that I work with, or any other coach work with, or anybody, the light starts to bright, just a little bit brighter, and that light starts to reflect. It's like a candle. You light a candle with another candle, and it starts to go. And so far, the darkness cannot latch onto the lightness if it's true darkness, so it's going to dissipate. So if we keep brightening and building this bigger, brighter light, and breaking the silence on things and coming out and being our true identity, the world's gonna get brighter and brighter and brighter. And that honestly really starts with healing inner child. I think every single person and politician, famous, whatever, whoever is in the media spotlights needs to work on that inner child because that's the key to it. That's the key. If we have a bunch of healed inner children and we're happy and creative and playful and fun, it's a whole different world.
Whole different world.
Whole different world. It
Whole
sounds
different
easy,
world.
and it could be, but the reason
You
it's
know what?
not.
I see that happening because the more people that you tell about the inner child, the more people you make aware of it, it's really going to break the silence. You're right because I'm over here like, what? So you mean to
Yeah.
tell me I was dealing with this because of something I experienced in my childhood?
And it's you can mend that and you can heal that. And it's the coolest thing. It's like we're not stuck in this thing of we're not stuck in a box where we can't do anything and we're victims and we're having to live it. You can change your entire life. You have the capacity and ability to do that, little steps at a time. And to me, that's such a happy, healing, wonderful feeling to me that we have the ability to do that.
Exactly. But that means that anybody can heal from anything at that rate.
Yeah.
You can heal from anything that you've been through in your life. It could be life changing for real.
Yeah. You don't have
Wow.
to people don't have to be miserable. They don't have to be unhappy. They don't have to live in that. You don't have to live that way. There are choices that even if you're in the most worst situation possible, you can change the mindset around that situation, perspective around that. And it starts with just the little bitty switches. seeing things, it starts with the gratitude of whatever everybody has, at least something to be
Something.
grateful for. I mean, to be alive is one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now we're down to what I told you, the 30 seconds of fame. So I'm going to run your countdown. And
Okay.
after your countdown, the platform is yours to give some advice to people, some type of leaving advice for a moment for them to reflect on, and let them know where to find you, how to book you as a coach, and everything else. Whatever you have coming up, this is your life.
Perfect.
All
Awesome.
right.
Thanks so much for listening today. It's been fantastic to talk to all you guys about the inner child. I want to leave you with this. Think about the consequences behind not healing your inner child and where you would like to be in the next year. And if you are willing to do the work to get there, I would love to work with you. So you can contact me on my information's down there. Best way to reach me is on my website. It's aliciafarricielli.com, ALICIAFARRICIELLI.com. There's a book a free consultation on there. It's about 60 minutes. We're going to dive deep into whatever you're looking for, anything that you want to work on. And I'm going to leave you some information and tips to walk away with. There's no obligation to sign up for coaching with me. I absolutely would love to have you as a client, of course, to work with your inner child, but go ahead and book that with me and let's get started on some healing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on my platform to enlighten me on the inner child, because I'm telling you, that is
It's all
something I
working
never
together.
thought about. Honestly. And I wish you nothing but success. If there's something I can do for you on my end to further help you get more awareness, if you have something you want me to share or however, let's
Yeah,
continue to work together so we can try to make people more
love it.
aware of the inner child.
Love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you so much to everyone else out there that's tuned into this amazing episode. I hope that you have gained some type of insight, some type of encouragement. And this is a reminder to you that you still can achieve anything you want to do in your life if you just tap into that inner child. You never know. You might be dealing with something in the past that's holding you back. And sometimes we have to take it back in order for us to really truly know who we are. She taught me something today. I don't know about you, but that inner child is something powerful. And I did not know that. The first time I saw her on another platform, I was like, oh my God, I want to hear a little bit more about this inner child. So I'm so glad that she was able to come and grace my platform today. And as we continue to journey together, remember that your voice matters, your life matters, and no matter what you're trying to do in this life, you can do it. So if today's episode has touched you in some kind of way, I encourage you to reflect, share, and continue to break the silence in your own life. So until next time, be blessed.
I grew up in a very conservative, I was a preacher's daughter, Christian, super conservative preacher's daughter, Christian. So I had a little bit of the spiritual aspect in a certain different way growing up. But I think my awakening was probably 4 years ago when I just started to question things and be like, this is just not